Aidan by Asa Montreaux. I wish I wasn't so shy. I wish I didn't have a really damn inconvenient tendency to faint under the slightest amount of pressure. I don't know how it got this way, but I do know that I have panic disorder. I start to feel uncomfortable. My heart starts racing and thumping like it's going to burst out of my chest, and then my vision starts to get blurry. Then all of a sudden, I wake up on the floor, or in a hospital bed. My name is Aidan. I'm a 20-year-old junior at UBC. I live in Vancouver with my mom and dad, and I take the bus to school every day. On the weekends, I take the bus into school too. And I go to Corner's library with its big, book-shaped arch, and I work on my writing. I wrote a novel. It's called Life in Technicolor. I guess when you feel more comfortable on your own, it's easy to sit down until they get lost in a story. It took me 2 months. I've written other stories, but this one is my best. It's about a college student that comes out as gay and experiences a sexual awakening. I published it as an ebook. Now I know what you're thinking. If I'm so shy, why did I publish a book? Well, I changed my name. Sort of. I changed my last name from Cunningham to Soares. There's no picture of me. No one would ever know it was me. I suppose not unless I told them. Sometimes I get comments on what I wrote. At first the book wasn't very popular. It had only 1 or 2 reviews. But now it's catching on, modestly successful. Did this story happen in real life? Is Neil a real person? Naturally, I don't answer. But I have received one query to which I'm thinking of replying. Dear Aidan, my name is Janelle from Estelle and Goddard Literary Agency. I read your book and I just loved it. I think you might really have something. I'd like to represent your work. Please write me an email and let me know if you're interested. Sincerely, Janelle Rudy. I felt so many things when I got this email. I was obviously so excited. I nearly jumped up from my seat in Corners, nearly shouted, and I swear every person in the library turned and looked at me. I almost fainted right then and there. And then I realized with great fear, how could I possibly ever come out as the author? After all, it was true. Neil was a real boy, and it was only a thinly veiled account of my real life. What if my family saw it? If I were to publish it, I'd really have to come out. My secret would be announced to the world. I'm gay, and it'd no longer be something I can hide. Immediately I moved my cursor to the delete button, but I hesitated. Having my book published was my dream. It meant everything to me. Maybe there was a way to pull it off. I wasn't sure how yet, but maybe it could be done. I started typing. Dear Janelle, I'm delighted that you liked my story. I'd be honored to work with you. When can we get started? Sincerely, Aidan Soares. Maybe I could stay hidden behind my name. It was a brilliant plan. I could be a successful novelist, and no one would ever know it was me. I was so exalted I nearly hit my head bolting up and pumping my fist. It was getting late, so I packed up and got ready to go home. I walked to the bus loop, admiring the way the night hung from the sky, soft twilight illuminating the walkways. The bus took forever to get there, but it was a fairly quick ride. I wondered if people were looking at me, if somehow someone knew it was me that wrote that book, that I was about to have it published. It gave me shivers. Eventually I arrived home. I walked off the bus and the few blocks to my home. Soon I could see it, a dark blue stucco with big windows. I went in the back door. I could hear my mom and dad up watching TV. I was thankful he didn't know it was me that wrote the book. I guess he didn't know anything about it. It's not that my dad would kill me if he knew. It's that he would totally kill me if he knew. My dad is old school. I've heard him say he hates gays. It makes it so difficult to be myself, and sometimes I wonder if that's why I have the panic attacks. I went straight into my room, undressed, and pulled myself under the covers. When I lay there at first I could feel myself shaking with nervousness. It took a long time for me to fall asleep, but an hour later, the buzzing in my head subsided. I finally fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I immediately went for my laptop. I opened my email and there was an unread message. I could feel my heart spike. It was from Janelle. I opened the message. Dear Aidan, I'm glad that you've agreed to my representation. We can get started right away. I will send your manuscript to a select list of publishers and we'll find a good deal for it. I'll send you updates along the way and let you know when I hear something. I look forward to working with you. Best regards, Janelle Rudy. So it was really happening. This Janelle was going to get my novel published. I couldn't believe it. Immediately I wanted to tell someone. I thought about running out of my room and telling my parents, but that wouldn't end well. I controlled myself. 2. About 3 weeks later, I heard back from her. Dear Aidan, I have found a publisher for your novel. Simon & Schuster has agreed to publish your novel. Congratulations. The deal is for international distribution with a 10% royalty. Very good for your first novel. You'll have to come to New York to discuss the details. There will be a book tour that we'll talk about then. Once again, congratulations. Get back to me about when you are available to come to New York. Best regards, Janelle Rudy. Wait, Did she say we have to meet? What happened to my plan to remain anonymous? Did she completely blow it up? How on earth am I going to come out and say I wrote the novel when it is only a thinly veiled account of my own life? How am I going to face having to come out? How am I going to stop from feigning, maybe worse, when I have to go up against all that? It occurs to me I'm going to have to write her and say I unaccept the offer. Just like that, it's over. I want to hang my head and cry, sob. It's all over. Suddenly I think of something. I leap over to my desk and grab my iPhone from its charger. I dial my best friend Aidan. He answers, "Hey man, what's up? Everything okay?" "Yeah, sort of. Look, could I ask a favor? Could we meet in person? Today? Yeah, sure. What's on your mind?" "I'll tell you when I see you." "Okay, sounds good. Meet at the park?" "Yeah, see you in an hour." "Definitely. See you in an hour." I arrived at the park first. Nothing better to do but swaying gently on the swing set. The park was full of bright green color, sky glittering above with the warm sun. Aidan arrived shortly after, and when he approached me, we fist-pumped and did our handshake. Then he sat down on the chair next to me. "What's up?" he asked me. "So listen, I wrote a book." "Oh really? Yeah. And now it's being published." "Okay, well that's great news. Congratulations." "Not quite. They want me to fly to New York." "You don't want to fly to New York?" "No. Remember those panic attacks I have?" "You mean all the time? How could I forget?" "Yeah, I don't think I can do it." "You can't handle it." "I mean, of course you can't. But I mean, it's just a book." "That's the thing. It's not just a book." "What do you mean?" "It's kind of about my life. What my life could be like." "So it's personal?" "More than that. I come out." "Oh, your dad would kill you." "Yeah, he would." "So what are you going to do?" "Well, I was wondering if you could help me." "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to go to New York for me." "And say I wrote the book?" "I don't know, Aidan." "All you have to do is say your name is Aidan Soares. No one will know. I'll tell you everything you need to know about the book." "What if something goes wrong? What if they find out?" "No one's going to find out. Nothing's going to go wrong. They have no idea what I look like." "But you don't want people to know you wrote it?" "That's exactly what I don't want. It'd be a disaster." "Okay, let me think about this." "Come on, Aidan, help me out." Okay, I'll go to New York, but after that, I'm done." "Fair enough. Thank you so much. I owe you big time." "Oh, you definitely do. Big time." I filled Aidan in on the plot of the novel. I included every nuisance about it he needed to know. He could have written an Oxford exam on life in Technicolor. I wrote Janelle that I could be in New York this week to discuss the details of the book. I bought Aidan a ticket to New York with my credit card. A week after we met, he took off to say he was the writer of the book. I couldn't believe we were really doing this. I was feeling a little weak trying not to visualize him in the meeting rooms, trying to pull this off. He'd been in New York for 4 or 5 hours when I got a call from him. "Hey Aidan, how did it go?" "Great man, they didn't suspect a thing. Totally fooled them." "That's great. You want to bring the book out right away since it's already an ebook. It'll be in print in 4 months. Wow, that's fast." "Yeah, and what's more, you have to do a pre-book launch tour. They want me to go to book fairs and stuff and be announced as the author." "Really?" "Yeah, but that's nothing. The book tour is going to be epic. All across North America." "Wow, but I thought you weren't interested in that." Yeah, man, listen, we need to talk. I'm in. I'll do the pre-tour, the book tour, everything. I'm so in. Talking about the book, having them think I wrote it, it was awesome. Wow, I don't know what to say. Thank you. So you're going to come out? I've been thinking about it, man, and yeah. What the hell, right? Even though you're not gay? Hey man, what are friends for? You're the best. I'm so excited for you. Yeah, hey man, I gotta go. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, see you, Jaden. I was in disbelief. Not only did he go through with it, but it worked. And he wants more too. I couldn't believe it. I guess sometimes things work out. When Jaden got home from New York, he came over and we talked about everything. I swear all they asked me about, as if it was my real life. I told them it was, and if I was ready to come out. I said I think the time is right. I told them I was ready. I was just thinking, whatever. You felt fine with that, even though it's not really your life? It's the life of my best friend. I felt like I practically did live it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can see that. And that's not the best part. Janelle, man, what a catch. She's so into me. Chicks dig gay guys, or something. Well, if she thinks you're gay, and you're not, isn't that kind of taking advantage of her? No, man. I'm just waiting for the right time. I'm telling you, she wants me. We're going to be together. Yo, I actually really like this girl. That's awesome. Who'd have thought? Janelle, man. Fucking Janelle. 3. In 3 weeks, Jaden went back to New York. They had several events set up for him at Manhattan bookshops. He was getting ready to bring his game to the next level, telling the public he wrote it. That morning I woke up before my alarms, staring at the ceiling above me. I was starting to feel a little mixed up about it. I suddenly really wished I was there in New York. I cursed my panic attacks. I cursed groups of people. I cursed extroversion in general. I zombie walked from my room with my robe into the kitchen, and I slowly made cereal like, I don't know, a zombie. I sat down at the table where my dad was reading the newspaper. Where's Mom? I asked. She's gone to Florida with the girls. Went to get some sun, relaxed on the beach. Wasn't warm enough here? You know, son. It's just not the same, I guess. So Jaden's starting his book tour today? Pre-book tour. The book hasn't come out yet. What's it about? Normal teenage stuff. I don't really know. He had looked up from the paper and was staring at me. You don't know? I thought you were his best friend. I haven't exactly read it yet. No one has. When it comes out, I'll read it. I see, he said. He returned to reading his newspaper, a scowl on his face. The New York tour went really well. No one suspected anything. They sent him off to Boston, Chicago, Denver, Austin, Las Vegas. The last stop was in Los Angeles. I called him before the start time of his event. Jaden, how are you? So good, man. The tour has been a hit. Everyone loves it. That's good. And everything's cool? No one suspects anything. You should see the way they look at me. They want me to baptize their fucking kids. Oh, must be nice. And Janelle, what a number. Things are starting to really heat up between us. You told her? What? I can't hear you. Listen, I gotta go. I'll call you later. He hung up. Later on, he didn't call and I wondered why. I could only lay in my room so long. No one wasn't going to call. So I went out to the kitchen. But I stopped in the hallway because I heard my dad yelling on the phone. What do you mean? Everyone loves it. I couldn't hear the voice on the other side. I could hear just his pause. I want him dead, you hear me? I want him dead. No gray area. I slunk back into my room as I heard him slam down the phone on the receiver. I wondered what that was all about, and I wasn't really sure. When I woke up the next morning, I felt funny. I didn't know why, like something had changed. I pulled myself up out of bed and sat down in front of the TV. I turned on the news and I was shocked at what I saw. The TV headline read, "Young writer shot dead outside motel room." That was odd. As I was listening, I heard it was in Los Angeles, and then it hit me. Before I heard his name, I knew the truth already. Jaden was dead. Shot dead in Los Angeles. I listened to the details, though a part of me drifted off into silence. They believed it was a targeted attack, happened early in the morning, just outside his room at the motel. Why had he been shot dead? Did it have something to do with the book I wrote? Did it have to do with me? I couldn't watch anymore, so I got up and walked around the house. My head was spinning. I started thinking about what could have happened. And then I realized it was my dad. I heard him barking on the phone. He must have ordered a hit, and Jane was killed only hours later. He had figured out what the book was about, and he hated it that much. I writhed in agony. What if he had known it was me that wrote it? Would he have killed me? Panic attacks seemed like the least of my worries now. Was there a copy of the book in my room? How did he find out its contents? Did he read it? No, it wasn't anywhere in the house. He must have an inside source. My dad had lots of connections, sometimes shady ones, I thought. He probably had connections in New York. What was I thinking, that I could fool my own father, and now my best friend is dead for it? Just doesn't seem fair. I walked back to my room. I looked at my computer. I thought about writing Janelle. Hey Janelle, it wasn't really Jaden that wrote the book. It was me. Do you have any idea what happened? Janelle, this is his best friend. What happened? Was it the book? Too many thoughts ran around in my head. I couldn't email her. Besides, maybe it wasn't a good idea. I looked out my bedroom window. There was someone walking their dog. I felt something at my eyes. I was crying. I was crying. Days went by and I found it difficult to look at my dad. I couldn't see him the same way anymore. Knowing what he was capable of, I couldn't stand it. I wished he wasn't my dad. Sometimes I went on walks, and mostly I wondered how I ended up with a family like this. How cruel. My mom endeavored to comfort me, but even that felt a little hollow. I wondered secretly whether there was something I could do. Whether there wasn't something I could do. Whether there was something that could change things. I thought about telling Jaden's parents the truth, that it was my fault, but I couldn't work up the courage. It was probably for the better. And I didn't know how to tell people yet. How was it going to get people to believe me, accusing my own father of murder? They looked at me like I was crazy. No, I couldn't tell anyone what I knew. Not yet. I searched online to see if anyone was catching on to what was happening. There was no word on who carried out the act. If it was an ordered hit, they didn't know by who. They still hadn't caught the shooter. Maybe if they did, he would talk. And part of me, I sort of hoped they wouldn't catch him, and my dad wouldn't be caught either. I got so mad at myself anytime I thought that, and I hated that part of myself. But still, it was hard to think my dad deserved to go down for a moment of anger. He deserved it. He ordered a hit. A real hit. Eventually it came out the book was still being published. They were going to publish it in his honor, for the fallen writer. Wow. The book was still coming out, and I couldn't help part of myself from being excited. The sales of the book could be huge, if it was being released posthumously. I guess Jaden would be getting something to be remembered by. If my novel had killed him, at least it gave him something that made him famous, potentially remembered for all of time. Jaden's body was brought back to Vancouver for his funeral. It was a closed casket. But standing near him, I could feel him in there. "Sup, Aidan," he was saying. "I'm just dead. It's no big deal. And hey, look, I'm famous. How about that?" It seemed we had all had a price to pay to get what we wanted. They wanted me to say a few words, but I explained I wouldn't be able to. Of course, they said, your panic attacks. It seemed they wanted me to be above them for this event, but it just wasn't possible. I could only be what I was. His dad spoke the longest. He started tearing up halfway through, but he pulled it together and got through. So they were so proud of him for writing this book and finding his truth. He was never one for reading, so they were as surprised as anyone. They had no idea he was gay. They always thought he liked girls, but they were happy if he could be himself. He died being himself, his dad said. At the wake, I found myself explaining to our friend Tracy that Jaden was in fact gay. "Yeah, didn't you know? I thought everyone knew. He was gay, totally gay." No, I had no idea. I always thought he liked me. Really? I laughed. Why would you think that? That's crazy, right? Just the way he looked at me, the way he acted. I don't know. You just have a feeling, right? I guess so. I can see what you mean, I guess. But I can't believe he died. I'm just in shock. I mean, who would do something like this? What a hate crime. I know, it's terrible. Just terrible. I hope they catch the guy. Have you heard anything? He asked for it, I asked. Yeah, that's what I said. He asked for it. Oh, Jacob, you never did like gays. Quiet, Amelia. The boy doesn't need to hear that. He's almost 20 years old. What exactly don't you want him to hear? You sniffed. Nothing. No concern of yours. He doesn't need to hear us fighting like this. Oh, he can hear what he wants. No, I don't want him to hear. That's enough, Amelia. Warning you. Oh, you're warning me, are you? You don't know who you're arguing with. Well, clearly, she got up and stormed out of the room. 4. Time went by after the funeral. I missed Aidan. I didn't miss the him that martyred his life to help me. I just missed the plain old Aidan, the way he was. I missed his company. I thought about writing Janelle and telling her the truth, that Aidan was just a plain old guy. I wanted to tell her the truth about things, that I wrote the book and that I was alive. I felt selfish for putting my worries in front of my friendship. It was wrong to ask him to come out for me, but I saw how my dad acted, the things he said. If I wanted to come out, I was up against the lot. I went and saw Dr. Callahan. Her office was downtown, a tower spiraling over the city. Aidan, it's been a while. I know. My panic attacks haven't been acting up. I kind of thought that was over. By avoiding society entirely? I suppose that's one way of handling the situation. Well, it didn't seem like I would ever get better. There was no relent to this thing. I mean, I'm not sure you know what it's like to black out and wake up somewhere totally different. First off, it's so embarrassing. I do get it. I understand, Aidan. Do you? How could you possibly understand? I've seen patients going through similar things to what you're going through, and I've seen them get better. Better? How could I possibly get better? I think they must be pretty different scenarios. No, I believe you can get better. You just have to believe in yourself and use the skills we've worked on. Are you a psychologist or a witch doctor? What difference is it going to make if I believe in myself? Use the tools I've taught you. Use mindfulness. Control your breathing. Visualize a safe place, and you won't pass out. That's easy enough for you to say. Why the sudden interest in getting over your fear? Something has come up. You need to beat your fear? Yeah, it's important. May I ask what's come up? I prefer not to talk about it. It's a secret? You could say that. Yeah, it's a secret. So let me get this straight. In order to rectify this secret situation that you're in, you're going to need to face up to your fears and beat your illness. I think so. I don't see any other way. Let me advise you to give it a try. If it's important, you have to try. Well, I'm not 100% sure it's the right thing. What's holding you back? Well, this thing, it's important to me, but it's important to someone else too. And you want to win it back? I never envisioned I would never get it back. It's just it's almost gone for good if I don't do anything. It sounds like you have to do something rather than nothing. It's about how I want to live my life. I don't want to live my life in fear. I realize that now. This might be my one chance to live my life truly. I admire your courage. I know that eventually you'll beat these fears. Thanks, Dr. Callahan. I was sorry I ever got Aidan involved. I realized this couldn't be the way he was remembered. It was totally counter to his spirit. He wasn't gay. He wasn't excited by men. He wasn't a writer. And he didn't write a book out of love for the craft. It wasn't fair to Aidan to be remembered as something he's not. To rest easy, he needed to be authentically remembered as a good friend who went out of his way to help me. As someone that loved life and loved women, I thought that I needed to write Janelle. I went over the best ways to tell her that I wrote it. Dear Janelle, I'm still alive. I had my friend stand in for me and say he wrote it because I wasn't ready. Something didn't feel right. What if she didn't believe me? I kept redrafting the email, but nothing seemed to be quite right. But I had to write her. I had to contact her. But maybe email wasn't the way to go. I needed to see her in person to explain things. But what would my dad think? Would he kill me too? How could I be sure it was safe? One thing was for certain. If I was going to New York, I wasn't coming back. I was going to need to be careful. I think it was obvious I was going to have to find out who killed Jaden, who my dad hired, and have them caught before it can be safe to go on a book tour to promote the book. I was sad my dad could have done something like this, but hopefully, with Janelle's help, I could find the killer and also bring my dad to justice. If he was also a killer, then he was going to be treated like one, family or not. I searched tickets on my laptop. It was a cheap flight in a couple of days, but it was overnight. I'd have to sleep on the plane. I thought, what the hell? It was time to go for it. I would figure the rest out on the way. 5. I told my parents I was going away to a meditation retreat. Took the SkyTrain south to the airport. I sat in YVR, waiting for my flight to board, having second thoughts, but also dismissing them because this was important. If I didn't say something, no one would ever know I wrote the book. When they finally called for my flight, the line slowly diminished to the check-in counter. I was near the end, and I could feel my heart fluttering. When I got to the counter, I showed the attendant my boarding pass with mock confidence, and somewhat to my surprise, I wasn't sent on my way back home. Flying coach wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I realized my seat was right by the engine. How on earth was I going to sleep? It was going to complicate things a little, that's for sure. The seat next to me was empty, and to my surprise, when we started taxiing to the runway, it was still empty. I'm a little scared of flying, and taking off is always the worst. The plane rattled back and forth, slowly moving faster and faster, and I worried we weren't going to take off into the air. Maybe we would hit another plane, or land in the water, but it took off all right, and once we were in the air, a few thousand feet between us and the ground, it felt better. We were flying. When the flight attendants came around for the first time with drinks, I asked for an orange juice, and thereafter I took six trips to the washroom. I was so nervous I could feel myself sweating even though it was, obviously, cold on the plane. I tried to settle myself down, and after an hour or two maybe, it worked. I had to sleep, I thought. The noise was loud from the engine, but I guess it wasn't deafening. I asked for a pillow and put my head up against the window and closed my eyes. After 15 minutes or so, I drifted off into sleep. I slept for 2 hours or so before I awoke, confused. There wasn't anything that seemed to have awakened me. No one was asking me if I wanted chips or anything like that. It must have been the noise. The only thing I felt like was sleeping, though, so when I had taken a few deep breaths, I closed my eyes and drifted off back to sleep. When I awoke, the pilot was in the middle of announcing our descent to New York City. It seemed like we were going to land. This whole ordeal was almost over, and I couldn't have been more relieved. I couldn't wait to land. When I saw the lights of the airport, I could almost feel it. I wanted to be on the ground, When I saw the lights of the airport, I could almost feel it. I wanted to be on the ground so bad. When we touched ground, I closed my eyes to try and stop my panic. Once again, it didn't seem like we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. The plane wasn't slowing down fast enough. Wasn't slowing down again. Boom, bang, crash, explosion. Oil everywhere. People on fire. But the plane came to a leisurely speed, and it was all over. When I stumbled through the walkway, my legs wobbled underneath me. I was super shaken up. I needed to find my hotel and calm down. That was priority number 1 before I did anything else. Customs only took 15 minutes at 5 in the morning. My baggage took as long as expected, but not much longer. My whole body was like jello as I hung for my suitcase. For a moment I forgot myself in pure joy for having caught my suitcase. I lumbered out of the terminal and outside to where the taxis were. I got in the first one, letting the cabbie take my bags. The Best Western Hotel, please. I know the one, sure. It was my first time in New York. The city obviously never slept, because I had never seen so many cars, so many people. Skyscrapers loomed above us. I could see the Eiffel Tower and the One World Trade Center. So many interesting sights, so many lights and buildings, so much commotion in New York. The cabbie deposited me out front of the hotel. I paid him and got out, leaving a generous tip. I thought so anyways. He looked no more pleased than before. My legs were more under me now. I wheeled my way into the front desk. Hi, I announced. Hello, are you staying here? Yes, I booked a room last week. First and last name. Aidan Cunningham. Okay. She did some typing and perhaps some computations. A little confused. A slightly confused look on her face. Then she looked up and said, Could I have the credit card you booked with, please? Certainly, I slid her the card. She looked at it and then she swiped it on her keyboard. She stared at the monitor, waiting for information. Then she presented the card back to me, smiled, and said thank you. She did some more typing, biting her lip. Then she reached for 2 keys and handed them to me. Here are your room keys. Have a pleasant stay. I will, but I'm here for business. Oh, I see. A bit of both, then. Yes, that sounds lovely. Have a nice day. You as well, sir. I turned towards the elevator and lugged my suitcase with me. The room was average at best. I didn't see anything so pleasant about it, that's for sure. There were 2 beds next to each other, and sat down at the one nearest the window. It was still 6 in the morning. I could sleep for a few hours, try to make sure I felt rested, and when I felt better, I could go and talk to Janelle. 6. When I awoke, at first I felt groggy, but after a few minutes I could tell I felt better. I felt very awake. It was time to set the record straight. I quickly dressed and did my hair, brushed my teeth and put on some deodorant. I googled the location of Estelle and Goderich. I had to take 1 subway to get there. Then I had to walk a few blocks. I could do this. I started rehearsing how I was going to explain, what I was going to say. You see, I wrote this novel. I know it's surprising, but I'm the real writer. I want to be acknowledged. You see, Jaden didn't write this. I did. This is bullshit. I probably shouldn't say that. The subway smelled as strongly as a garbage dump, and several people asked me for change before I got on it, and as I was leaving the station, back to the light. As I stepped out of the subway station, I wiped my nose. It was all black. Oh, the gray smog hung over the city. I felt okay as I walked toward the agency. I could feel one foot under the other. It didn't feel like either foot would give. I stopped at a crosswalk, where the flashing man signaled me across the street. Before long, I was in front of Estelle and Goderich, looking up at it in an anxious awe. I went through the double doors and in towards the elevator. I pushed the button for the 2nd floor and swayed back and forth 1 foot to the other, waiting for the ding of the elevator's arrival. It took only a few minutes. It took only a few moments, and the promptness was impressive. I stepped in and turned around, thumbing for the 2nd floor. When I exited the elevator, I could see the office, and hesitating only for a second, I went for the door, opened it, and entered Estelle and Goderich. A receptionist looked up and smiled at me somewhat sleepily. I went up to her. Hi, she said warmly. Hi, I was just hoping to speak to Janelle. Usually our meetings are by appointment. What is it regarding? It's important. She'll want to hear what I have to say. I see. What's your name? Aidan Soares. Pardon? Aidan Soares, the writer. Okay. Why don't you just have a seat over there, please? Certainly. When I sat down, I nearly stumbled over. My heart was pounding through my chest, but I kept telling myself to calm down. Everything is fine. I watched the receptionist pick up the phone and dial it. She looked confused and skeptical. I could hear her say, There's someone here to see you. He says it's him. Well, he's here now. She hung up the phone and I looked away from her. I looked at the walls, several plaques, some postmodern paintings, and the glass walls between the office and New York. The receptionist went back to whatever she was doing before, like nothing had happened. It was a while I was waiting. I got so anxious, all I could do was twiddle with my hands. Eventually, a door opened, and a woman dressed in black came out, her heels making noise against the tiles. "Mr. Soares?" I rose. "Hello," I said. "Janelle." It was her. "Why don't you step into my office so we can talk?" "That's what I'm here for." We walked over to the far side of the room, to an office in a corner, overlooking the nearby street. She sat down at the head of the desk and motioned for me to sit down as well. She clasped her hands together and sat down on the mahogany desk. "So you're Aidan Soares, but Aidan Soares died a few weeks ago." "I know, pretty crazy, I'll admit. In fact, I knew Mr. Soares. I was quite fond of him. He didn't look like you." "No, certainly, he didn't." "So you can explain to me what's going on?" "Oh, he's dead. The man you knew is dead. I know we said he wrote the book, but he didn't write the book. He said he wrote the book because I wasn't ready to come out with my sexuality. His name was Jaden. He was my best friend." "I'm very sorry for your loss." "Thank you." "He stood in for you?" "When you asked me to come to New York, I knew I couldn't do it, so I asked him to go for me. Eventually I was going to say I wrote it, but it got out of hand. He was doing the tour, going to talk with people who read the book, everything. So you wanted to tell the truth. It's just that the sensitive matter contained in the book made it impossible." "Precisely. Well, I'll say this. I'm not mad at you. It was brave to share your work. You had a very nice friend. That he would step in like that is remarkable. My anger at him aside. He was a great guy. He spoke fondly of you. It seemed like he really liked you. He was the perfect guy. It seemed he had everything. But knowing the truth, I see it was too good to be true. Something was wrong. It's true, I could tell something was wrong." "Pretty hard to say you wrote something like that." "Well, I congratulate him for getting away with it." "So what are you going to do?" "Well, without a writer, all our plans for the book were completely shelved. We thought Jaden could have a nice long career with us. I suppose it would have been a very unwelcome surprise when he wasn't able to write a follow-up. He couldn't write at all. Aidan, say you wrote the book. Take a risk and be open with your sexuality, and this book will be a success. All the signs are good. We just need a face. Will you be the face, Aidan? Will you say you wrote the book for me?" "Yes, absolutely I will. Yes." "Good. Then we'll make an announcement, and when the book's tour starts, you'll head out as the writer. I'm proud of you, Aidan. You wrote a really great book, and now we have our prize writer again. Thank you. All right. I look forward to the book tour." 6. When I arrived home in Vancouver, I could settle down for the first time. My heart hadn't stopped racing since the interview, and I hadn't slept a wink the night before my plane ride. I sat down on my bed, my mind replaying the images of Estelle and Goderich, and I instructed my heart to slow down. 15 minutes later, it started to slow down, and an hour later, my heart rate was normal again. When the plane took off on the flight home, I was certain my heart rate was going to beat so fast my heart would burst open. Before we left the ground, I was seeing stars. I could have sworn I had already passed out when we got airborne, and I breathed a sigh of relief and came back to consciousness. The announcement of the new writer was coming. Word would be out tomorrow, but for now it was time to sleep. I lay down in my bed, closed my eyes, and with the lights on, I slept for 10 hours. When I awoke, it was morning, and I groggily got out of bed, my head feeling like I had knocked it on a brick wall. I braced myself through the pain, and in the kitchen I made some cereal, pouring the milk slowly. I started eating it as I walked to the dining room table. When I sat down, my father was there, reading the morning newspaper. I quietly sipped my cereal. Things were silent for a few minutes. My dad read the paper intently. "Aidan," he said. "What is it?" "It says here that Jaden didn't write his book. He only said he wrote it." Oh shit, I was so tired I forgot about the announcement. And did I really think this through? Oh my god, now my dad knew. And after what he did to Jaden, what on earth was I going to do? I regretted coming out and saying I wrote it. There's nothing between my father and my sexuality now. It was all out in the open. And he continued, it says that you were the one that wrote it. I had no idea how to respond. I wasn't sure if it was an accusation. I held my breath and wasn't quite sure what to say. Then my mom walked in. What's going on? She said. Jaden didn't write the book, my dad said. Aidan did. Oh, sweetie, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Your book's being published. She hugged me, and I held on for a good moment. Thanks, Mom. You mean to say that you were the one responsible for this book? You're the one that wrote this stuff? Oh, it's just a book, Dad, and you haven't read it yet. Haven't read it yet? I don't think I'll be reading this one. In fact, I think I'll be going away for a few days. Oh, Jacob, come on. Amelia, if you wrote this, it's a big deal. I don't feel good about this. Suit yourself. The next morning, when I woke up, my father was gone. He hadn't said goodbye, he'd just left. He must have been so angry. I kept thinking I was surprised he didn't jump across the table. He could have killed me right then and there. I was so sure of it. I always knew my father was a bit backwards, old-fashioned, and then some, but I never knew he was outright malicious. Aside from being totally rude, leaving was enough to scare me anyways. It was petrifying. What on earth was he up to? What could he get up to while I was not watching him? He could get away with anything. I'm sure he was meeting with his cronies in New York. And they were going to finish me off the way the ones in LA finished off Jaden. My death was unavoidable. Janelle may have wanted a second novel, even a third, but I was no source of a follow-up either. I was dead meat. Days went by with little to do but think about the absence of my dad. Sometimes I would sit up suddenly and think that there was a scope pointed at me. In the middle of the night, I would wake up from my dreams and slap at the phantom strangling me. One evening I sat at the table with my mother. Mom, where did Dad go? He just went away to cool his head. He doesn't like being angry. But where did he go? I'm not sure either. He called though. He's safe. You say he's mad? Yes, he's upset. Is it because of the book? I suppose that's part of it. It was hard for him to hear. And son, it meant that you came out of the closet. I know. Maybe it was sudden. Just who am I though? I feel so much better, for what it's worth. You had to say something eventually. And waiting doesn't make it any better. He's just shocked. But the things he said, your father says a lot of things. A lot of things. But that's all. He doesn't act on them. He would never do anything to hurt you. Are you sure? That he would never hurt you? Of course. Otherwise I would have called the police. That too. But I mean, that he's never acted on what he says? She frowned. I don't know, son. I never thought him capable of it. What do I know? I was in love. Are you not anymore? Sometimes I wonder, I suppose. Your father can be eccentric. I wonder if I knew what he'd be like, if that would change something. But I suppose it doesn't. It doesn't? No, of course not. Until death do us part. Till death do us part. It's getting late. Are you all finished with your dinner there? You stopped eating. Oh yeah, I'm full. Why don't you run off to your room? It's almost bedtime anyways. Two weeks passed and my dad didn't come home. My anxiety fizzled out, but sometimes it was still there. The moment I thought he was coming home, it was there again. Ever since he left, I felt certain a blackout was coming. But I was doing good, and the space between panic attacks was growing farther and farther apart. Maybe he wasn't coming back. Maybe there was a silver lining in all this. It was puzzling why he hadn't killed me yet. He was obviously a cold-blooded killer, and he had the scent. Was it past him to kill his own son? He'd killed my best friend, so one could fathom. maybe it wasn't. One day a piece of mail came for me. My mother handed it to me. From New York, she said. I saw the name Estelle Nagodarich on it, looked at it puzzled. What could she be sending me? I opened it, intrigued what I might find. There was a note inside. Dear Aidan, this was meant for Jaden. We agreed to terms because the book had such good hype. I think you'll find this is a substantial sum for a first-time author. I hope all is well, and we'll see you in a month. Best, Janelle. There was also a check. I looked at it. It was for $50,000. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't really thought about the money side of things. What had Jaden been up to? He was going to take pay for his little gig? What else didn't I know? A little later, my mom had news. Your father might be coming home this week. Really? What happened? Up until now, when I had asked if he was coming home, all she said was no, firmly. Up until now, when I asked him if he was coming home, all he said was no, firmly. But this time he said maybe this week. He said something came up, something urgent. What reason does he have to come home? There's something here he needs to take care of. It could be the case he'll take off again, after he sorts it out. Oh, do you want him to come home? I'm not sure. Why, do you? Well, of course, yeah, I want him to come home. I gulped audibly, but she didn't say anything. Oh my God, he was coming home, and there was something he needed to take care of. He was going to kill me in my sleep. He was unstoppable now. And all this time, to premeditate a murder and anticipate all my defenses, I was totally screwed. I had to get away. My goodness, I'd never run away before. What would my mom think if I just fell off the radar? Where would I go? But I did have one advantage. I had a check for $50,000. And if I cashed it, well, then there'd be no going back. But if I did, then I could get away. If I went all in, maybe, just maybe, I could survive. It seemed worth it. Or maybe it was just my desperation. I had to leave. I had to get out of there. Really, I had no choice. I couldn't stay alive if I remained where I was. That night, when my mom was asleep, I started packing a bag. I fit as much clothing as I could in it. My toothbrush, a toilet bag, my phone charger. And it was dead quiet in the night. I ordered a taxi through an app on my phone. I snuck out and waited for it outside so I wouldn't honk or call my phone. When he got there, I put my stuff in and then got in beside it. To the border, please. Okay, sir. I take you there. There was no traffic and we breezed by the empty streets. A half hour later, I could see the familiar signs of the border crossing. When we arrived, he let me out at the pedestrian crossing. I showed my documents to the officer, and maybe somewhat reluctantly, they let me into the United States. I walked for 15 minutes, 20 minutes before I found a gas station with a restaurant. I bought a sandwich and an orange juice, and then I called another cab. I took it into Bellingham, then out to Birch Bay. There, stop here, I told the driver. It was a tiny bed and breakfast. It seemed perfect for hiding out. I paid him and then got out and grabbed my bags. I lugged them up the walkway and knocked on the door in the middle of the night. After a while I could hear some feet shuffling, and then someone was opening the door. An elderly man stood there. Hello, my name is Alan. How can I help you? I was wondering if you had a room available, sir. Well, as a matter of fact, I do have one. Why don't you come in then? I shuffled my stuff inside and followed him towards the back of the house. He had a key in hand that he used to open one of the rooms. And here is your room. How long do you want to stay? I don't know. A couple weeks, I guess. We'll see. It should be fine. There's breakfast in the morning, and you're on your own for dinner. There's a path down to the beach, and plenty to do in the city. The password for the Wi-Fi is Jiffy. If you need me, I will be around. I imagine you want to go to bed. Oh yeah, that'd be nice, thanks. I'll see you in the morning. He shuffled off. I went in the room and locked the door. I felt safe there. No one would guess where I was. When I had gone someplace that they wouldn't think. Somewhere not even that far. It was safe for now. If that changed, I'd be out of here. There was no room for error. I lay down in my clothes, and the rust of energy in my body slowly subsided, and I fell asleep there, with my clothes on. I found a nice used bookstore in town, and I bought some books to keep me company. I brought them home to the bed and breakfast. I would take them to the beach, cozy up, and read for most of the day. One day I headed to the beach with an ancient copy of Huckleberry Finn. There were some things swirling around in my head. I wasn't that scared and I could think clearly. I started thinking about a sequel to A Life in Technicolor. Certain elements of the novel, I realized, I could push further. The book contained gay sex scenes, with explicit details. The answer to my new novel was where their sex lives went. I wondered how to write it, being kind of unexplained to myself. I hardly ever even told anyone about my sexuality. Sometimes things fit together though. Oftentimes you could just tell that someone you're interested in was gay. And that was the only time you could trust someone with your secret. Living open would be a new experience. I could tell it was only beginning. Sometimes I felt like someone was watching me. But whenever I looked around, it was only just me and no one else that was around. There was nothing to report about cronies and my dad, but there was one thing that went awry. I was waiting on the beach and I passed a group of people, and at least 4 of them called me a faggot. It was bizarre. I guess there were some challenges to being open, besides the obvious ones even. But I stayed in Bellingham, relaxing and spending time on the beach. I let a whole month pass by, and then it was time to go to New York for my book tour. The last time I walked on the beach, I couldn't believe it. I come to feel so at home in such a short amount of time. I said goodbye to it, and then I said goodbye to Alan, and I packed my bags, which had grown a little thicker. I took a taxi to the Bellingham airport, where I had a flight to Seattle, and then directly to JFK airport. The small plane was delayed an hour. I wondered if I'd make my connection. At the seaport, I ran with my suitcase to make my connection. I swear the plane was already about to taxi off when I got there finally. I think they thought about whether they would let me on, and did so to spare the bad review. I was getting better at flying, when the big 747 took off from the ground at its own pace. I stuck with it. As we went faster and faster, this time I knew we'd take off into the air. For most of the flight, I stared out the window. Sometimes I could just see clouds, but other times the landscape was changing drastically beneath me. It really was pretty far away. It was a vast and complex country. As the flight drew on longer and longer, I did a little worse, but when landing time came, I was ready for it. I handled it like a pro, compared to just a couple months ago. When I grabbed my luggage, there was someone in a dark suit waiting there. The sign said Aidan Cunningham. "Hi there," I said. "Mr. Cunningham, there are some people waiting to see you." "I know. Well, let's get going then." My memory was awakened by the drive through the city. It was raining though, and everything was slightly less lively. This time I was staying in nicer digs. The driver pulled up outside the plaza, and all I could say was wow. My room didn't have 2 beds next to each other, but a sofa with a separate bedroom and had a nice city view. I was on the 10th floor. Suddenly everything hit me. This was really happening. Being the writer was awesome. I couldn't believe I would give this up. Tomorrow was the first day of my book tour, and hopefully the start of something special. We were handing out special advance copies at the signing for the first time. Then just like that, the novel would be released, and I would either sink or swim, but it seemed pretty certain it was going to go well. The tour would go across the United States, just like the pre-book tour, but bigger, more real. This was an actual event, where people would get the chance to meet the author of a book they'd actually read. I was wondering how people would respond to it. like they feel connected to it. I just wanted to write about living as your true self. I knew that I had to resonate with people. Everyone struggles to be themselves, or else we wouldn't be alive. It was getting late and I could barely contain my excitement, but I thought I should try and sleep. I crawled into bed, and on this night I fell asleep after a few moments, more tired than I realized. I slept a long, deep, healthy sleep. 7. The next day I woke up, just before my alarm. I shut it off, thankful not to have to hear it. It was going to be a good day. I showered, brushed my teeth, sculpted my hair into place, and got dressed in a nice outfit. I wore a dark blue dress shirt and black slacks. I put on nice black shoes and walked out the door. I hadn't really planned for breakfast, and I was too excited to eat anyways. The same driver was waiting for me downstairs. I saw him through the car window, reading a newspaper. "Hello," I said. "Hi there, you sleep well?" "I slept great." "So what's on the agenda for today?" "We'll take you right there. You'll have a few minutes to get ready." "Get ready? That won't be necessary." "And for you to meet your tour manager." "Tour manager? Yeah, he's a good guy. You'll like him." "All right then." I had some new people to meet. Suddenly I wasn't feeling as confident. Eventually we pulled up in front of the Barnes & Noble in Midtown, and I felt a little unsure of myself. But I knew I had this. I got out, bid the driver goodbye, and out front there was someone waiting for me. "Hello, Callum Lackland. Nice to meet you." He held out his hand. I shook his hand. "You must be the tour manager." "That's me. I'm so glad you are finally here. So your book will be released in 2 days. It'll be in stores across the nation and in international markets as well. This is the first stop of your book tour, in which you will visit 20 different cities. In every city except New York, your book won't be released even for a few weeks. That's why we're doing the advanced copies in New York." "Right, that makes sense. And you can build the hype. That's precisely what we want to do. If you're on your A game today, the good word can only spread like a fire." "Haha, yeah. I'll be on my A game for sure." I felt very nervous now. I wasn't sure why. "Well, are you ready? I think they're ready to introduce you now." I looked into his eyes to see if he was serious. They were quite dreamy. Are all those people here to see me? "Like we said, you're already a hit." "Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this." Perfect. He turned and started walking in, and I followed him in through the doors. There's a large seating arrangement inside, and a desk with a chair open, perhaps for me. And sure enough, Callum led me alongside the seating, towards a desk, and finally behind it. There waiting was the manager of the bookstore, and she introduced me to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest, all the way from Vancouver. He is the writer of Life in Technicolor, which has been creating quite a stir. It's sure to be a massive hit. He'll be answering any questions you have, before signing copies and being available for you to meet. So let's hear it for Aidan Soares." I had been half turned to the crowd, and now I turned and faced them, looking up at them for the first time. They were quite loud. They were all clapping. It felt good, but there were so many of them. I didn't feel so good. Why did my book have to be so successful? It didn't suit my skin? Questions? Oh dear. This was a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure indeed. All of a sudden I could feel my heart. It felt like 200 a minute. Then my vision started to fade, and I fell to the ground in a heap. I heard gasps and screams, and I couldn't see anything, and it was all over. Well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. I felt like I'd been passed out a long time, when I finally woke up. I was in the hospital. I looked down. I was in a gown, and I could feel my underwear were gone. Someone's undressed me. I blinked my eyes. I sat up. I felt weird. Someone came in the room. It was a nurse. "You're awake?" "Oh yeah, hello. Everyone was so worried about you. We weren't sure what happened to you, or what made you pass out. It happens sometimes. You should have told me about it. We were ready to do all sorts of blood tests, CTs and x-rays, with you to figure out what's wrong. Your tour manager was so worried. I don't think anyone was so worried. He wanted us to get to the bottom of it. Be relieved it was just anxiety, I imagine. Yeah, it's embarrassing. You shouldn't be embarrassed. It happens to lots of people. Yeah, too bad they happened to me. I'm sure you'll adjust. Your book is just about to come out, and it's a lot of pressure all at once. My book. So it was still coming out. Yeah, I guess so. That used to be worse. See, there you go. You can recover from this. It'll just take time. Just go slow. Slow, right. Yeah. It'll be okay. Now there's someone here to see you. Oh, okay. I'll be right back. The nurse left and I was alone again. It was so embarrassing. I should have known this would happen. I couldn't believe I didn't see it coming. Everything was just going my way. And it was all happening. There wasn't any choice in my head about going through with it. I suppose there should have been. Maybe I wasn't up for this at all. Then someone came in through the open door. I turned my head to see who it was. It was Chanel. She looked concerned and she was smiling a little, perhaps in greeting. There you are. We were so worried about you. Yeah, sorry. What do you have to be sorry about? For passing out. My book signing. It was embarrassing. Not really. Callum handled it, and we think it'll all blow over. My book, it's still coming out? Of course. That is. If you're up for it. That is. Yes, I am. It's just, well, the book tour. I'm not sure I'm up for that. We can discuss it. But readers are going to want to meet the author. You know how it works. I know, but Salinger never met any fans, and he's still pretty popular. You don't want to be Salinger. You want to be yourself. The tour allows you to introduce yourself and set yourself apart from other authors. How are they going to accept me? You're the author of a brilliant book. They can't wait to accept you. Believe me, you are far less quirky than most writers I know. So I guess you know how. So I guess you know now that you're quirky, that I have panic attacks. I know that being gay isn't the only reason that you chose to have someone else say they wrote your book. I wanted to tell you, it's just I wanted it so much. Everything was happening so fast. It's a very stressful time. The book only comes out once. Maybe in a few months there won't be any pressure at all. And now we know not to stress you out. You think we could still do the book tour? We can skip the grandiose introductions, have better timing with other events, and we could eliminate the questions part too. That would help. But the question is, do you think you can still do the book tour? I don't know. They're getting better. Well, that's great. We'll be there for you every step of the way. Maybe after the book comes out, there won't be so much pressure. Then we'll already know how it did. No more anxiety. Exactly. See, there is hope. So you're not angry? Angry. This has been one of the weirdest book launches I've ever been a part of. Honestly, finally I see some clarity arising from it. So no, I'm not angry. That's good. It is. So you think we can continue working together? Absolutely I do. Yes. Awesome. She sat with me for a few moments. Well, I'm going to go. It was nice to see you. Glad you're feeling better. We'll speak after the book comes out. Okay, sounds good. Janelle got up and walked out of the hospital room. I was alone again and I felt a cornucopia of emotions. I was relieved that my book was still happening, thrilled there could be a tour still, and terrified for what could happen. But with them working with me, maybe things would be controlled more, and I'd probably still have panic attacks, and maybe we could get through them, and maybe they wouldn't be so bad. 8. That night I was released from the hospital. I went home to my hotel room. Even though the book was still coming out, I couldn't help but feeling a little down. All the same, I was hungry. I ordered something to eat from downstairs, and 20 minutes later there was a knock on my door. I slipped the attendant $10 and sat down at the table. I turned the news on and listened to it drone while I ate. I felt like I hadn't eaten in days. I was famished. Suddenly I thought of my parents. I missed them. It was weird to say that because maybe my dad was coming to kill me, but I missed them. Both of them. I like to talk to my mom. Maybe she could sort through my problems. I like to apologize to my dad. Say sorry for scaring him. But maybe it was deeper than that. Maybe he didn't deserve an apology. Maybe he'd been really offended in a deep way, and there's nothing I could do. I thought of Jaden. I could never forgive my dad if he had really done it. I couldn't see any way around it. I heard him order the hit. I don't know what better evidence there was than that. It was just one more day until my book was launched. It'd be just one more day that I'm alive. What would Janelle say then? 2 writers dead? I figured if I could make it past the book launch, that would be a major accomplishment. There was a chance I could be alive at least for a little while. Maybe I'd be ordering more room service. I wasn't going to be leaving that room for any reason until the launch had passed. Then I thought maybe someone could find me here. But it seemed my hotel was safer than out on the street, where anything could happen. I didn't want to make the news for the wrong reasons, for getting pinned down. It took me a while to calm down my thoughts, but afterwards I watched reruns of The Big Bang Theory, because there's nothing else on TV. I turned in for bed early. I probably wasn't going to sleep tomorrow night, so it was important to get as much sleep as I could tonight. When I woke up the next morning, I had been in the middle of a bad dream. I had not followed my own advice, and had stepped out of the hotel. And right outside, I was kidnapped. They took me to an old warehouse near the water and lined me up against the wall and shot me in the head. After I got shot, I woke up in my bed. What a scary dream. It took me some time to realize I was okay, to catch my breathing. After that, I swore I wouldn't leave the room no matter what. However, I was hungry. I needed to go down for breakfast, though there was nothing stopping me from ordering something, even if I usually only did it for dinner. I dialed room service and ordered pancakes, French toast, and an omelet. If I was going to hole up in a hotel room, I could at least do it in style. When the food came, I suddenly regretted ordering it because now I had to open my door. I was suddenly really awake, breathing heavily. I walked over to the door and looked through the peephole. It looked like room service. He had the food and everything. Who was it? I asked. Room service. Alas, that's what I needed to hear. But it still could be a trick. I couldn't be holed up in here without anything to eat, though. Maybe I had to risk it. Hey, I made it until one day before my launch. That's not so bad. I decided to open the door. I held my hand over the lock, hesitating. I had to open the door. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Unlocked. I pulled the door open. Hello, said the attendant. Oh, hello, I said. Is that for me? Certainly, sir. Here you are. Yes, thank you. I'll take that. I handed him a 20 for luck and bid him goodbye. My goodness, I was so hungry. I opened up the tray and started to dig in. I had eaten a little bit, but when it occurred to me, the attack could be in the room now. What if the food was poisoned? I stopped eating. While I'd eaten it now, I was as good as dead. When I didn't die instantly, I decided to take a half-hour break from the food to see if I died or not. If not, I wouldn't let the food go to waste. I was too hungry and too nervous. While I waited, I tapped my phone on the ground. I watched the clock as it moved every minute. 9:34, 9:35, 9:36. It was taking so long. The good news was I wasn't dying. Finally, after an excruciating wait, a half hour was up. I thought about it again. Yep, I was definitely going to eat. I started chowing down again. All was good. I might just survive this thing after all. Everything went down fine indeed. Aside from a few trips to the bathroom, I felt great. It didn't seem like anyone was going to barge in during the middle of the day, though I couldn't be too sure. I walked over to the window and started watching everything happening below. I was transfixed. Old men taking way too long to pass, young women stopping to talk on their phones, cars stopped out front, suspicious cars parked out front for so long it made me feel uncomfortable. One black sedan was there for so long, I swear, I almost passed out. It wasn't getting me anywhere watching everything like this. After 2 hours, I gave up. I walked up to the couch and turned on the TV. I flicked through the channels to kill the time. I skipped lunch, and when dinner came, I knew I had to eat something. I could think of 2 options. One was to skip out of my room and down the hall get some chips from the vending machine. But for one, I had skipped lunch, and two, and this was the big risk, I had to leave my room. The other option was to order more room service. Then there was a chance I could be poisoned again. But I had worked this morning. It could even be the same bellboy. That brings it up. Room service it was.